caution horses. That seems like a strange thing to warn somebody.
Peter. The horse is here.
Hello, viewers! Welcome to the start of a new series on Ecoswap. This is Domestic Doppelgangers, where we take a look at some of humanity's most important animal friends, species that have influenced the course of our history, and ask the question, what if they didn't exist? What other options from our planet's biological history could step up to the task? In our debut episode, we'll be looking at arguably the most game-changing animal humans have ever domesticated, the horse. We'll take a look at what roles they served throughout history, what traits we humans selectively bred them for, and then speculate if any other animals could do the same in their absence. Let's find out together!
Also, a lot of you really seem to like this anime about horse girls called Unomasume. I've never seen it and know nothing about it, so it's gonna be tough for me to reference it for you, but I'll give you this one. The white-haired chick can step on me.
Have you ladies seen my donkey?
Who are you calling donkey?
Donkey? You're
A stallion, baby! I can win it! I can count! Look at me, Shrek! I'm trotting!
Equus ferus was domesticated somewhere in Central Asia around 4000 BCE. They were likely multiple domestication events, with populations becoming feral and then being domesticated again and again. Despite this, in roughly 1000 years they had spread over most of Eurasia and served similar roles to today. Now, domestication is a poorly understood concept by more people than you'd think. Domesticated animals are those that have been selectively bred over many generations by humans for a specific purpose. This is not the same as taming, where an individual wild animal is conditioned and trained to be comfortable around people. To even be domesticated, an animal species has to meet 4 behavioral qualifications: feedability, friendliness, fecundity, and family values. Feedable is very simple. Can this animal reasonably fed in captivity? Something like an elephant, or multiple elephants, is only realistic for a civilization or kingdom, not for a small band of hunter-gatherers. This also rules out most omnivores and carnivores, because while potentially dangerous, humans would have to split foraged food with them. Not ideal to compete with food with your mount. Friendliness is a bit more complicated. Obviously, you need animals that aren't so aggressive that they'll kill humans on sight. But they also can't be too fear-based. An animal that snaps its own neck trying to get away from you isn't going to be easily kept in captivity, and they're going to be under high stress. Not great conditions for a domesticated mount. Fecundity is how likely they are to breed in captivity. If you can't get them to reproduce, you're not going to have generations to work with to properly domesticate them. Look at dogs. You want domestic animals to be so ready to reproduce that they often pick the wrong targets. A second aspect of fecundity is reproductive rate. You gotta be able to produce these animals at decent numbers. Most of our modern domesticates can make at least 1 infant a year, if not much more. That's gonna be our baseline, and is similar to how quickly horses can reproduce. And finally, the most controversial, family values. Any animal viable for domestication needs to come from a species with a social structure so humans can get them to imprint on us. Horse herds, wolf packs, even feral cats have a complex social life where they live in groups and share caring for young and surplus food. For a more in-depth look into this topic, I highly recommend you go check out CPG Gray's video on the topic, which I am showing the thumbnail of here and link in the description. I highly recommend it. As for the horse, the major roles they play in human history are transportation, warfare, and agriculture. Thanks to their amazing speed and stamina, a guy on a horse was the fastest form of communication until the invention of the telegraph in the 1600s, though China may have had a similar system in place with flags and fires as early as 400 BCE.
Now all of China knows you're here.
Horses also served as mounts during most of humans' conflict, able to move at high speeds and add force to blows, or simply allow an army to cover ground more efficiently on foot, or rout the enemy with a cavalry charge. And their role in agriculture is matched only by the oxen, as horses have often been used to plow fields and herd livestock. Size and strength let them carry heavy loads, from a rider in full armor to family's entire belongings, pulling chariots or carts in a team. All of these roles boil down to the horse's bread and butter, speed and stamina. With the average galloping speed of 25 to 30 miles an hour, or 40 to 48 kilometers per hour, they can maintain this speed for 10 to 15 miles at a time, possibly more, though beyond that, health risks become a concern. If at lower speeds, this can be extended greatly. Horses work best at temperatures between 41 and 77 degrees Fahrenheit, or 5 to 25 degrees Celsius, though it should be noted constant water intake is vital for this, usually 38 to 45 liters or 10 to 12 gallons a day. And while not as efficient as humans, horses can sweat to keep their body temperature cool during hard work. Notably, horses get by primarily on low-quality food, i.e., grass. While they can and will browse when the option is available, a horse is a machine that turns grass into fast. It's these factors that primarily give such a boon to us humans. A mode of transportation that gets by on food available almost everywhere, at little cost to us, and can cover large distances easily. It should be noted, we won't be looking at particular horse breed traits here, as those are the results of thousands of years of selective breeding. For example, hot bloods are bred for speed and endurance, cold bloods for power and stamina, and warm bloods being a mix of the two. As domestic breeds are derived traits, we're going to be going into this assuming that whatever animals might be able to replace a horse could be bred to be more specialized. To a lesser extent, horses are also a source of milk, leather, blood, meat, and companionship, though this varies greatly due to what culture you're looking at, and usually cattle, sheep, goats, and pigs take bigger roles in these categories. In summary, we need animals of about half a ton for proper load bearing and weight capacity, which can run at speeds comparable to horses for a similar distance, and can subsist on poor quality food, and meet the qualifications for domestication. That's a lot of boxes to checkmark, so it's going to be a high task to see if any other animals can meet them. With that in mind, let's go through some other lineages to see if any can match the horse's set of characteristics. I'll be highlighting some of the more likely taxa, as well as those often used in place of horses in fiction. If horses were poofed out of history, what would take their place? Let's go back in time, starting with the more recent taxa.
It looks to me like I've got all the horses! Hey, Benny! Looks to me like you're on the wrong side of the river!
The de facto mountain arid regions of Eurasia and North Africa, camels are a set of two modern domesticated species built for reliable transportation. The dromedary in hot climates, known for its single fat storing hump, and the Bactrian of cold climates, with two. While these two are going to be our main focus, I do want to add in that I'm lumping in extinct camelids in the same category, because a lot of them will share similar traits and similar pros and cons. Camels can eat nearly any plant material on Earth, and even cacti are easily digested thanks to super durable and heavily moist mucous membranes that deflect the quills. Camels aren't picky and will graze and browse on just about whatever's available. Even better, they actually surpass horses in speed and stamina when it comes to sandy terrain. The loose substrate makes horses trip and stumble, but camels can consistently reach speeds of over 16 miles an hour in such conditions. They have greater tolerance to both heat and cold, can carry proportionally more weight than horses, go longer without food and water, and have similar temperaments and reproductive rates. While camels have a reputation for being angry, grumpy animals, this is largely bad PR. They get just as attached to and loving to their riders as horses, and their herding structure is even similar to boot. The only major downside is that camels can sometimes be very intolerant to dogs, and that slippery, muddy terrain is a bigger hurdle for them than horses. Bare camel toes don't like to be wet.
I'm sorry.
In our timeline, horses lived at more tolerable climates to humans, making them a more convenient choice. But should horses not be available, I think this is the next best thing, if not better in some cases. Camels match and exceed the role. And that emu's coming closer too.
Honk.
I'm lactose intolerant.
Oh man, here we go. I know. 1, yeah. 2, yeah.
skipping!
The largest domestic animals humans have, the many varieties of cattle offer a surprising option. While usually seen as merely milk or meat animals, they can be saddled and trained to ride without much difficulty. This section will cover domestic meat and dairy cows, water buffalo, zebu, bison, and their extinct relatives, like the aurochs. Their stamina matches that of horses, and they can carry much more weight as well. Stronger, they're often prioritized over horses in terms of pulling plows or carts. Cattle even reproduce faster than horses, and are specialized grass eaters as well. But this is where the buck, or in this case the bull, stops.
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
They can't come close to horses in terms of speed. Their agility is poor at best, at least compared to horses. Sure, they have more power in a charge, but after that they're spent. Furthermore, most have large horns, which are actually more of a liability in transport and in warfare. It's too easy for those horns to get caught on tough brush, or to get roped down on the battlefield. Cattle are vital to human civilization, but they won't be taking a horse's job anytime soon. In fiction, boar riders are a common trope. Is this based on any real evidence? No. While being social and opportunistic omnivores makes them great candidates for domestication overall, taking the role of a horse is beyond their physiology. Only the largest boars reach a size that can carry a human without suffering major injuries. And that's not accounted for any extra gear needed for the journey. To add insult to injury, pigs are sprinters, not marathon runners. Smaller sows and piglets have been clocked at 20 miles an hour, but only for a few brief seconds. A large boar would be even slower, especially laden with rider and gear. You're likely better off on foot. Deer, or cervids, are an interesting choice. On paper, they easily get large enough to carry a human, breed fast, have social hierarchies, and are browsing generalists. The big obstacle is that most cervids don't do well in large herds in captivity. Males of many species, particularly elk and moose, are very aggressive to one another, and putting multiple in a single pasture doesn't end well. Some smaller deer, like sika deer, do well with this, but they're not large enough to carry a human over long distances. Furthermore, deer usually only form herds for short periods of time, namely breeding seasons. Males going through rut are particularly unruly and potentially dangerous. Add in a very strong flight response and superb jumping abilities, and it makes sense why most cervids aren't good candidates. There is a notable exception though. Reindeer are a subspecies of caribou that have been semi-domesticated by dozens of cultures around the Arctic Circle, such as the Inuit or the Sami. Primarily nomadic peoples will travel with and manage herds as they migrate to new grazing pastures. The reindeer are semi-wild, but humans milk them, shear them, hitch them up to sleds to haul gear, and can even ride them. The reasons reindeer haven't taken off are antlers, lack of stamina, and temperatures. Like the large horns of cattle, these can be a hindrance in thicker brush, and could be grabbed in warfare to restrict the animal's movement. While reindeer have similar running speeds of 20 to 35 miles an hour, and they've been clocked at an impressive 50 miles an hour, they are sprinters.
Come, Gimli! We're gaining on them! I'm wasted on cross-country! We dwarves are natural sprinters!
To marathon, they have to slow down to a measly 10 miles an hour, more of a canter than a gallop. But the far bigger issue is climate. Notice in their natural range, reindeer are only found in and around the Arctic Circle. They don't tolerate higher temperatures well, and it would take quite some time to breed that kind of temperature tolerance into them. Should the world fall into another ice age, I'd invest in these guys, but for the time being, they can only compete with horses in the coldest of climates. One would think antelope fall into the same category as deer, being too flighty, having intolerant social structures, and their large horns making them a non-viable horse replacement. And this applies to most of them. But there is one modern contender. Meet the giant eland, the world's largest antelope. Standing at 4 to 6 feet at the shoulder and weighing in at 800 to 2,000 pounds, it's very comparable to a horse in size. And while they have horns, they aren't as long or complex as many other antelope species. Despite their size, eland are remarkably fast and agile, capable of top speeds of 40 miles an hour and maintaining slightly slower cruising speeds for long distances. They've even been noted to leap their own height over fences. Eland tolerate a wide variety of habitats, including woodlands, scrublands, wetlands, and mountainous terrain, making them jack of all trades in what terrains they can easily cover. They have wide diets, acting as both grazers and browsers, and like camels, can get by with only water from plant matter, particularly succulents are one of their favorite treats. Even better, eland are highly social, living in herds of 15 to 25 that don't break up after the breeding season. Gestation takes about 9 months, similar to a horse or a human. Elands are such good candidates for domestication that it's already started. Eland are farmed in both South Africa and, oddly enough, Russia of all places. Local herdsmen have started farming them like cattle, raising them for milk and meat. Time will tell if anyone ever tries to saddle them up and have success, but if you're making a fictional world with no horses, this may be a phenomenal exotic replacement.
Look for the bare necessities, the simple bare necessities. Forget about your worries and your strife. I mean the bare necessities are Mother Nature's recipes that bring the bare necessities of life.
No. Just no. No. It's not an option. Forget bear cavalry. It's not going to happen. Most brown bears don't even get big enough to comfortably carry a rider. They're sprinters, not marathoners, and despite their wide diets, they still have a preference for meat. It's not good to have to compete with your own mount for ideal food, especially if the mount can decide if you're food. While bear sociality is often understudied and oversimplified to labeling them as solitary, that doesn't mean they stand being in a pen with potentially dozens of other bears for extended periods of time. Oh god, just thinking about that gives me anxiety. Only Kodiak and polar bears even get big enough to carry a rider, and I shouldn't have to explain to you why that's a bad idea. And don't even mention short-faced cave bears. No, this is not going to end well. You will die.
Wait.
Just say go.
Go.
So a lot of people like to discuss ostriches as a rideable animal, sometimes in a more comedic way, and as an alternative to horses. In some ways it makes sense. They are visually large, fast, and birds in general have a superior respiratory system. For a brief crash course, every time a bird inhales, it then exhales the breath from the previous inhalation. In between, the air is pumped through the lungs and then into 2 sets of air sacs before leaving the body. This is far more efficient than mammalian respiration, better at extracting oxygen from the air. None of this makes the ostrich a good mount. What it boils down to is balance and weight distribution. Adult ostriches weigh between 140 and 330 pounds, or 63 to 145 kilograms. This is far below the 1,000 pounds we're looking for to help carry a human rider and their belongings. When we see ostrich races today, the birds are often panicked, stumbling, and looks as if they're about to topple over. Ostrich bodies are relatively short in terms of length. The added weight of a human often makes them unstable and cumbersome. Even in parts of South Africa where ostrich riding is a tourist trap, there's a weight limit on this. Average adult humans are just too much and the bird topples over. The extinct ostrich genus Pachystruthio may have been an ostrich of almost half a ton, and that bird could fulfill the role modern ostriches can't. But its size is questionable at best. All we have is a partial femur. Controversial at worst. Being the largest land bird, the fact that ostriches can't handle a single rider shows that emus, rheas, and cassowaries certainly are not up to the task. The elephant bird of Madagascar was certainly large enough to carry a human. They toppled the scales at over 1,800 pounds. But being island dwellers with no large predators as adults meant they had no evolutionary pressure to be fast, or a distance runner, or grow quickly. These birds were the ecological equivalent of elephants, growing slowly and needing no speed or endurance to avoid predators. Beautiful animals, but ultimately ratites can't play horse.
You guys say Colorado.
Okay, so I was originally going to include the antilocaprids, aka the pronghorns, in this category along with their closest living relatives, the Giraffids. But when I began research, I found that none of the pronghorn's extinct relatives got much bigger than our modern species. And a modern pronghorn cannot carry an adult human, let alone gear or supplies, so we're just going to be focused on the Giraffids. Let it be known though, if there was a pronghorn that got big enough, it would be an amazing horse substitute. Modern-day giraffids include the various species and subspecies of giraffes, as well as the okapi. None of these animals are good horse replacements, namely due to the giraffe's deeply sloped back that you'd slip off of and break an ankle. However, the giraffids of the past are another story. Animals like Civatherium, which you may remember from its gorgeous design in Zoo Tycoon 2, as well as lesser-known relatives like Paleotragus, Samotherium, Giraffocaryx, Brahmotherium, Bigerbolinia, and the very depressed-looking Inganotherium. All of these giraffid genera were large enough to carry a rider and extra, with some like Civatherium rivaling the biggest draft horses of all time. Like camels, giraffids are often edge habitat specialist browsers that will eat any plant material available. Some can get all their water from plants alone. While the largest Civatheres would be very slow, smaller ones like Paleotragus, Giraffocaryx, and even Brahmotherium were comparable in size to various horse breeds today, and could likely reach similar running speeds. Modern giraffes sprint at 35 miles an hour and are very efficient at long-distance travel, though their long legs undoubtedly contribute to this. Thanks to extinct giraffes having a wide variety of species and niches, feeding these animals wouldn't be too difficult. Some were grazers, some were browsers, and some were mixed, allowing for an animal that can feed itself in a lot of terrains. Now the one major con, or I suppose two major cons, are gestation times and their ossicones. Ossicones offer the same issues as horns and antlers, though generally on giraffids they're smaller. Some extinct giraffids had wildly complex arrangements, and those would obviously be a liability. Both modern-day giraffes and okapis have pregnancies lasting 400 to 460 days. Still within reason for domestication, but almost 100 days longer than a horse's. It's a major con, and they likely wouldn't replace horses entirely, but in a setting without equids, I could certainly see one of the many giraffe relatives taking up the role.
Oh my god! Oh my god, yes! Yes! Yes, yeah, dude! Yeah, dude! Yeah, dude! You're Rhino riding, man! You're riding a Rhino! Oh my god! This is amazing! This is amazing! This is amazing! Yeah! 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 Lock in! Oh! Oh! Yeah, dude! Yeah! Yeah! Yeah!
Gotta get this out of the way real quick. These are two families of animals that are not particularly closely related to each other. While they're both in the order Perissodactyla, or odd-toed ungulates, brontotheres are actually closer to horses than they are to rhinos. I'm only grouping them together due to them having convergently evolved body plans to each other. As badass and spectacular as riding a rhinoceros or brontothere into battle would be, it should come as no surprise that they aren't really feasible. All of the brontotheres I could find relative information on are either too large, too fragmentary, or both to fit the role of the horse. Sure, they were powerful and strong, potentially great for hauling, but speed and stamina would have been lacking. They also had long gestation rates, comparable to modern-day rhinos and elephants. The rhinoceratids don't fare much better. Large and fast in a short burst, their endurance leaves a lot to be desired, and their pregnancies can last almost 2 years. The only rhino-like animal I could find that might get the job done are very early rhinos like Hyrachodon. 5 feet at the shoulder, these pony-sized animals could be rideable, and would be great at hauling weight as a pack animal, but there's no evidence to suggest that it was a stable runner.
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
Which is arguably the most important of our horsey traits. The sociality and aggression of rhinos are often misrepresented. In captivity, they actually tolerate herd living quite well, and behaviorally, they're more skittish than they are temperamental. Despite this, rhinos' reproductive rates, combined with being so large as to need near constant feeding, disqualify them as usable domesticates, at least as far as the horse is concerned.
Hello, I'm Mr. Ed.
A horse is a horse, of course, and no one can talk to a horse, of course. That is, of course, unless the horse is the famous Mr. Ed. Go right to the source and ask the horse. He'll give you the answer that you endorse. He's always on a steady course. Talk to Mr. Ed.
So, despite being a perissodactyl, Chalicotheres usually don't come to mind when people think of rideable extinct animals. This is probably due to their harshly sloping backs, positioned more like a gorilla than a horse. However, this is only one side of the family. There are two subfamilies of Chalicotheres. The Chalicotherinae, which are the classical Chalicotheres, and the Schizotherinae, which have a flatter back and more even front and back legs. It's this side of the family tree we'll be looking at here. Schizotherinae Chalicotheres, like Moropus and Ankylotherium, stand at a good shoulder height of 6 to 8 feet, 1,000 to 3,000 pounds, and had relatively flat backs for a rider to sit on. While browsers, they do have the ability to rear up and use their long front claws to pull down vegetation. But those claws are also why they can't be successful horses. Without hooves, they're severely limited in their running speed. Heck, Ankylotherium has even been proposed to be fossorial, being more akin to a ground sloth or gopher than a horse in lifestyle. Those front claws just make them too slow and ungainly. Their speed and running endurance would be worse than cattle. Disqualified.
Wait. Just say go. Go!
Remember all the reasons I said ostriches aren't good mounts? That again, but also the reason for bears. Next! In all seriousness, terror birds were shockingly lightweight for their size, with the largest species ranging from 3 to 600 pounds. Large enough to carry a single rider for a short term, as long as they didn't have any armor or supplies or extra gear and they were relatively small human. Add in that these are ambush predators built to sprint and not long distance run, and you have an animal that, while conceptually very cool, in reality isn't a good choice for a mount.
Hey! Do the world a favor! Move your issues off the road!
If my trunk was that small, I wouldn't draw attention to myself, pal.
Native to South America are an odd group of mammals with no close modern relatives. The Liptopterans are a group of herd-dwelling, grazing and browsing herbivores that hold the ecological role of deer and horses. From the Eocene to the Pleistocene, a very successful run. In the past, they were portrayed with a small trunk, but we now know this structure is more akin to a saiga or a moose's nose. Many were mixed feeders, eating both grasses and leaves. A notable trait is that some species had highly reduced digits in their toes, even more extreme reduction than modern horses. While equids only have one major toe they run on and 2 reduced toes, some Liptopterans only had the large toe for running, with others having reduced to nothing. While it's hard to extrapolate exact numbers, maybe impossible, these kinds of cursorial adaptations were for energy-efficient travel and speed. Studies in the last decade on Macrauchenia, the most famous member of the clade, were capable of fast acceleration and swerving at high speeds to avoid predators. Members of Leptoptera large enough to carry a human include Xenorhinotherium, and the most famous of the group, Macrauchenia. All of these genera weighed somewhere between 800 and 2,000 pounds. We don't have any hard data for their rate of reproduction, however we do know these animals were heavily preyed on by big cats like Smilodon, so they were at least quick enough at it to replenish their numbers. Plus, fossil remains show that they lived in large herding structures. All good points in their favor. I think Leptopterans would be great options, possibly even superior to horses in some regards.
Wait. Just say go. Go.
Previously referred to as demon ducks of dooms, Dromornithidae, or the Mihirungs as they are referred to by the Chaporing of Australia, are huge birds. Larger than terror birds or moa, only the elephant bird outsized them. More specifically, the species Dromornis stertoni weighed in at 900 to 1,200 pounds, with their head being 9 feet or 3 meters off the ground. They got the name Demon Duck of Doom from the fact that they are closely related to the Anseriformes, modern-day ducks and geese. This, combined with the degree of sexual dimorphism noted, males being 10% larger than females, leads many paleontologists to think they had nesting, courting, pair bonding, parental care, and aggressive nest defense behaviors. There's a check for social behaviors. Mihirungs were herbivores, eating tough-shelled nuts and fruits with their huge beaks. It would have been capable of cracking open bones if they scavenged, but isotopic analysis of their eggshells shows that nearly all of their protein came from plant matter. Despite their huge size, these birds are suggested to be capable of high speeds, thanks to their talons having hoof-like specialization and their extremely muscular legs. Oh my gosh, do we finally have a bird that can replace a horse? Oh yeah, I was getting worried that no birds could... Wait, what? Oh no. Mihirungs had extremely long growth rates. Chicks took 10 to 15 years to reach maturity. That's comparable to an elephant or a whale. This is not feasible for a domestic animal that needs to breed in high enough numbers to facilitate success. Humans would have to keep detailed records of Dromornis breeding for decades to domesticate them. I'm actually sad about this. I had high hopes for this animal. I even had ShadedGenet put it in the thumbnail. No! They were not particularly social. Large omnivores that want high-calorie food that may include you have long gestation rates, and a sloped back a rider may slide right off. Once again, Entelodonts are a very cool mount for fiction, but if you're aiming for realism, this ain't it.
Tim, can you tell me what they are?
Gallimimus. Are those meat-eating metasauruses?
Wheeling a uniform direction changes, just like a flock of birds evading a predator.
They're flocking this way.
I'm including both of these fluffy, non-avian dinosaurs together due to similar body plans, and while they both are Saurosaurs, they are not each other's closest relatives. I originally wasn't going to include these two in the video, as I couldn't find any species of these animals that reached appropriate sizes. Not counting the outliers, the biggest of them only occasionally reached half a tongue, with Gallimimus and Anzu respectively. And with their relatively thin necks and legs, and their ostrich-like build, I was worried riding them would cause physical stress on the body. But then I recalled that Dinocyrus and Gigantoraptor exist. At 6 and 3 tons respectively, the existence of these giants assures us that transitional forms existed, meaning there were species of Ornithomimid and Oviraptorid that could comfortably carry a human. We just haven't found their fossils yet. But the two bigger cousins prove that they did exist. Both these dinosaur groups were omnivores that preferred plants, but can hunt insects and small game. Both were social animals that exhibited strong parental care and lived in large groups. Both had the bird respiratory system, and both were quite fast, reaching speeds of 30 to almost 50 miles an hour. Both laid a dozen or more eggs at once, and young can run soon after hatching. While we have to use implied species, both Ornithomimids and Oviraptorids are fine horse replacements.
Come, Sarah. 3 horns never play with long necks.
Littlefoot. 3 horns never play with long necks.
Okay folks, let's show that you're listening. Can you guess why Ceratopsians, animals like Triceratops and kin, aren't good candidates for a horse replacement? If you guessed size, ding 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 ding, we have a winner! If we were specifically going for draft horse replacements, Ceratopsians would actually fulfill the whole role pretty well. But these large, ponderous bodies are not built for speed or endurance. Also, their horns and beaks are insanely dangerous to handlers and even potential liabilities in warfare. We'll return to these guys in a later episode, but for now, they don't make the cut.
Yep, Petrie. You keep it safe. Yep, yep, yep. Nope, nope, nope.
Alright, time for the moment I bet we've all been excited for. Despite often being regulated to the role of prey or background animal, these were some of the most successful and widespread dinosaurs to ever exist. The group Ornithopoda contains Hypsilophodontidae, Rhabdodontidae, Elasmarians, and Ankylopolexia. While such a wide array of life can only be summarized so much, let's break it down group by group. Hypsilophodontidaes are arguably some of the cutest dinosaurs to ever exist. Despite this, none even got over 50 pounds. They aren't taking a horse's job anytime soon. Of Rhabdodontidae, the only animal of notable size and phylogeny is Tenontosaurus. While mostly shown in media being portrayed as food for Deinonychus, this 1,300 to 2,200 pound herbivore is certainly the right size to carry a human. They were adaptable animals with wide ranges in space and time, living in many habitats and climates. But they lack the most important characteristics: speed. A narrow pelvis, hook-like claws instead of horse hoofs in later ornithopods, and shortened phalanges all point to it not being particularly quick, especially in acceleration. Elasmarians are a clade of former hypsilophodonts, now grouped together due to all coming from Gondwana, which was a megacontinent formed of Australia, South America, and Antarctica. A lot of these genera were fragmentary, and most of the rest are quite small. In fact, every well-established member of this group is too small to carry more than a single human comfortably, let alone gear. None of the dryosaurs were large enough to carry a human as well. These big-eyed, long-legged bipedal herbivores were quite the speedsters, but most were under 10 feet in length and barely over 100 pounds. Now for the big group. Ankylopalexia contains most ornithopod diversity. Most were at least a few hundred pounds, primarily quadrupedal, and universally herbivorous. Many had layers of ever-replacing teeth, called dental batteries, for processing tough plant matter. Despite their bulky-looking frames, many could outspeed the large carnivores they cohabitated with as well, with legs powered by a huge caudofemoralis muscle, the one connecting the base of the tail to the leg muscles. It's generally split into three groups: Iguanodontia, Hadrosauriformes, and Styracosterma. Please take this with a grain of salt. Cladistics is not my specialty. I'm an animal behaviorist. Taxonomy gets a little over my head sometimes. Styracosterma is full of genera that are too fragmentary or controversial to sort into either group. Most are poorly described, and the ones that aren't are poor horse replacements. Iguanodontids are the opposite. Most particularly, Iguanodon itself are very well described, but they're all the size of elephants, simply too large for early humans to domesticate. Which just leaves the Hadrosauriformes, and oh my god! Here's an overview of their positive traits: large and powerful legs, wide diets, high reproductive rates, social herding behavior, and long-term parental care. The only potential downside is their metabolism, but consensus seems to lead towards endothermy, thanks to the following evidence: geographic distribution, many of them lived in very cold climates; their encephalization quotient, or brain size, needing high caloric intake; scleral rings dictating a more active daytime lifestyle; early ancestors being endotherms; oxygen isotopes in the bones; their high growth rate, and their posture. I can't say it's for certain, but it's looking very likely they could at least keep up with mammalian and avian metabolisms. Sufficient information on every genus is lacking, but given the positive traits they share mentioned above, here is every animal I could find with an acceptable size range. User experience may vary. Altirhinus, Eolambia, Probactrosaurus, Tethys hadros, Bactrosaurus, Glamoriosaurus, Telmatosaurus, Gobihadros, Arenyasaurus, Kazaclambia, Canardia, Blastosaurus, and Gongshuliang are all within the size range of modern horses. Take your pick, some are better described than others. Telmatosaurus is an example of insular dwarfism, belonging native to Hattig Island, so its ability to run effectively might not be as good as the others. Personally, I think Kazaclambia is my personal favorite, just due to the name. All of these animals would have made amazing candidates, and because of the huge amount of species diverse within the Hadrosauriformes, there were probably dozens more that we don't know about. These guys absolutely have the capacity to fit the role.
Go away!
It's okay. It's Brachiosaur.
To Vegisaurus, Lex Vegisaurus!
Our last serious contender for the role of the horse is probably one that will surprise you. Most of the time, sauropods are thought of as huge animals, lumbering giants that towered over the Mesozoic. And that's true, but it's time for some taxonomy hijinks. Because Sauropodomorpha contains those guys, and a myriad of smaller forms that don't quite fit the bill of true sauropods. And it's these smaller kin that are up to bat. Like their giant cousins, these animals were all endothermic, bulk-feeding herbivores that could sustain themselves on low-quality food, and had high reproductive rates. Sociality varied by species, but we know a lot of sauropodomorphs lived in herds at least seasonally. All would have that classic bird-like respiratory system, meaning endurance was sure to be greater than a mammal of equal size. Speed is the major downfall, Even the outgroups of this clade tended towards using size as their main defense. However, while there are no good speed estimates for me to throw numbers at you, we do have a few relative speedsters here. Outside of the subgroups we have Afrasia, the most primitive sauropodomorph to be on our list. At 600 to 1300 pounds and about 20 feet in length, this was a very gracile and lightly built animal. It was either an obligate biped, or capable of switching from bipedal to quadrupedal gaits at will. Because it's a lot thinner and lighter than later members, Afrasia is probably the quickest of the bunch. Within the family Plateosauridae is the namesake itself, Plateosaurus gracilis. One of the most well-studied Triassic dinosaurs, this endothermic animal was an obligate biped with cursorial adaptations! Traits such as a long lower leg, digigrade foot posture, elongated metatarsus, and an erect hind limb posture, combined with its center of gravity being over the hips, suggest Plateosaurus was a very capable runner. Unlike mammals, who have running gaits with stages where all limbs leave the ground for short periods of time, Plateosaurus simply increased the frequency of its stride by retracting limbs at faster rates. Either method works, so it's a horse apiece.
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
Yeah, cursorial adaptations in a sauropodomorph were not on my 2026 bingo card. The structure of their bones at a microscopic level suggests a very fast growth rate, and that they continued rapid growth throughout their lives. Individuals at 10 to 18 years of age showed signs of growth despite having long since passed adulthood. Smaller populations of its older cousin, P. trossingensis, may have also been viable, weighing in at 0.5 to 4 tons. None of the other sauropodomorphs really make any decent goals. Nothing from Rheotosauridae, Massospondyle, or stem sauropods falls into the size range applicable without being extremely robust. Even so, Afrasia and Plateosaurus offer some very fun possibilities, and I was pleasantly surprised they stood out as such a good option. Guys, listen, I love Dicynodonts, one of my favorite extinct animal clades, one of the animals of all time. But come on, this is an audition to replace the horse. Look at this guy and tell me he's not a potato with feet. There's no way they have the speed or stamina to keep up. Better luck when we try to replace cattle. Thank you all so much for watching. Do you agree with what animal groups may make good replacements for horses? Leave your thoughts in the comments below. Once again, thanks to my beloved art team, ShadedGenet, Barzap, JustSomeGuy, Nuka-Cola, Baldbird, Johnny the City Patty, GreenClaw Studios, DrakeBoy, AkantorEvolved, Corvix, and an Antithornian bandwagon. Thank you all for everything you do for me. Here are the additional art featured in this episode. And as always, my sources. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you all in the next one.